Hi, and welcome again to this latest episode of the Plata Ward 4 Update Podcast. This is Dave Jenkins, the Plata Town Council member from Ward 4, and your host for this podcast and videos, which are now available on YouTube and YouTube Music. This is the next episode in a series of podcasts and videos about La Plata's budget, all to provide transparency and information as the Town Council prepares the upcoming fiscal year FY 2026 budget. I want to start with this slide, which is the basis of this podcast and video. It's really one of the priority campaign themes by an organization called Strong Towns, and that priority campaign is entitled Transparent Local Accounting, and their emphasis is on that good decisions start with transparent accounting. Local government, that is, town government like La Plata, should be the place where residents collectively shape their cities. But in order to do that, you need clear, accurate, and accessible information about your local finances, that is, our local budget. And local governments must then be properly funded, but your money, taxpayers' money, must also be properly stewarded or preserved. So this is about financial sustainability. In order to provide critical life-sustaining services to the public, not only today, but for generations to come, cities, towns like La Plata, must be good stewards of the public purse over the long term. We must be able to ask the question, can my city or La Plata afford to continue doing this forever? So this is what this is about. So this is one of the handouts from their two of their resources, one of which was a podcast video about this, and then also an article from Strong Towns. The actual article or the course is entitled Parsing Through Your Local Budget to Find Some Real Answers, and I'll provide a link to that particular course as well as this indicator. So I'm going to talk you briefly about the three indicators shown on this slide that do with sustainability, flexibility, and vulnerability. And I'll explain these in a little bit further detail as we get further into this podcast and video. And again, I'll provide a link to this as well. So the first one is called Sustainability Indicator. And that means the degree to which a city can maintain its existing financial obligations, both in respect to the service commitments to the public, but also financial commitments to creditors, employees, and others without increasing our debt or the tax burden. And this particular indicator that they talk about is called Net Financial Position, or NFP. This is an indicator of how much a government will be relying on future revenues to fund current services and infrastructure. So the source of all these information that I show on these charts is from the town's audited financial audits dating back to 2009 and moving forward all the way until 2023. We expect our latest audit, which are required every year, to be finished or at least in draft form by the end of January or the end of this month. So I'll add on to this as well. But that's the source of the information. I take some of this audit information, I put it into a spreadsheet, and based upon the work done by a gentleman from Strong Towns, it calculates these different ratios. So this first one is called Net Financial Position. Again, how much a government will be relying on future revenues to fund current services and infrastructure. So you can see the trend has increased over the years. That's a pot, and I should also emphasize that these indicators or these charts, you should really not look at each individual year, but again look at the trend lines, and I'll try to briefly explain what they are. But that's the important thing: is what do the trends indicate over the number? In this case, from 2009 to 2023. Now, this one for net financial position seems to be a very positive trend in that. Anything that we keep in reserve is good. So that indicates we're in a good positive position. A positive net financial ratio, in which case we do, indicates financial health, showing that the town has more financial assets than liabilities. That's a good thing. A negative net financial position ratio would show or suggest the opposite. It may indicate financial stress. So again, we have a very positive trend here for this particular indicator. Let's go to the next one in terms of sustainability. This is a little different and frankly a little bit incomplete and complicated. This is called, again, another sustainability indicator, net debt to total revenues. And what that means is, or it's a measure of future revenue that would be required to pay for past transactions. So an increasing ratio indicates more time will be needed to eliminate any net debt. Now you'll notice, unfortunately, from 2012 forward to 2023, there was no data that was available from the audit because it was not required to that indicator or that band of information to be reported. So therefore, that's what you see. So it skews the chart. However, there is some mixed results from the years 2009 through 2012. It seems to drop, which is a conservative threshold, so a ratio of 0.5 or less is considered healthy, conservative and healthy. That is, we have enough money to manage our debt. So that's positive. Unfortunately, from the years 2010 through 11, that indicator went up. So it kind of moderated. While that's not bad, it's not necessarily good. It's still somewhat acceptable, particularly if we have good, strong financial management and growing revenues. But then it does drop. So it's somewhat of a mixed bag because we don't have all the information necessary. But I do think it's important to highlight that particular indicator. So now let's go to the next one, which is a little bit more complicated. This one is called, and again, this is a flexibility indicator. That is the degree to which Plata or a government can change its debt or tax burden on the economy within it operates. And can it meet its existing financial obligations in terms of both commitments to the public and any financial commitments to creditors, employees, or others. So this particular indicator is called net book value to cost of total capital assets, that's TCA. This measures the extent to which estimated the useful life of our tangible capital assets, TCA, are still available to provide services. Now, a falling ratio would mean that we have had deferred maintenance. And just so you know, net book value is the historical cost of an asset less any amounts recorded for depreciation, how we amortize it, I can't say that word, or it's depleted. So the trend line here is positive in the sense that we have a less than 1 ratio. You can see 0.7, and it kind of drops off a little bit, and then goes down to as low as 0.6 or 6. That's not good, but it's not bad. It does suggest that our assets have probably depreciated more significantly, and their net value is much lower than what their original cost. This could signal an aging infrastructure that would need to be replaced or refurbished. So the trend line is slightly down, and that certainly is reflective of our infrastructure here in La Plata, as some of our water and sewer lines are 56 or even 70 years old. So that's why we've seen, particularly during this cold weather, some water main or sewer line breaks. So that's, again, not a bad trend, but it's just conservative. So we definitely would have to watch for that out in the future, again, looking at the trends. Now, this next one, again, it's called what they call a vulnerability index. This is called government to total revenues. Now, vulnerability indicator that tries to measure the proportion of our revenue that comes from governmental transfers, such as grants or subsidies or other forms of financial support from higher levels of government, obviously the state or the federal government. So you can see here our government transfer to total revenues chart. The trend line has been kind of up and down. We had it dropped significantly between 2009 and 10. Then it shot up to pretty high in 2012, and then it's trended downward between the years 2012, 13, 14, and it has remained somewhat low or steady up until 2023. So a low ratio would suggest that we have some, which is good, we have some financial independence with the revenues coming from mainly local taxes, fees, or other economic activities. So the trend line has been down, which is a positive indicator. If there was but if we had a higher reliance on government transfers or to pay for things, then that would be, we could be vulnerable to changes or budget cuts or other volatility of the government. We hope that doesn't happen with the new administration, if in fact they do cut revenues or cut grants or other activities that we somewhat depend on. Not a lot, but somewhat. So we do have somewhat of a balanced approach, which is a good thing. So I want to begin to close out this particular episode about financial sustainability and these indicators and the trend line. So overall, they are somewhat positive, but I would offer the following observations, my own observation as one council member. It is important that we and I review the annual audits and their trends, not just each budget, because like many, including me, I do tend to focus on the budget in terms of profit and loss, or do we have revenues, or is there a deficit? That's good, but the audits also provide more valuable or other valuable information that is needed to be tracked on a trend line and over time. I would again urge and argue again the need for the town to do additional outreach and resident engagement in our budget process. Again, these are your tax dollars, and I'm sure you want to know that they're being well spent and you have a return on your investment. So there's also a need to balance our revenue sources so we don't have too much dependency on property taxes or other taxes and state and federal grants, as that other chart showed that we have a little bit of that. So we just need to have a different balance of our revenue sources. And again, that leads into this final timeline and observation. Timeline observation would be, again, for me, this suggests that we need to diversifying our tax base. And I would refer you to my January 14th, 2025 video podcast that talks about Plata's economic development. It's time that we had that particular function in town government. And again, I'll provide a link to that as well. So in closing, I just want to close with the following, that my ask again is to please stay engaged with the town, particularly as we start preparing the fiscal year FY26 budget. I've already posted it, and I'll keep doing it, our calendar as we review and prepare the budget. Our next meeting about the budget will be on Tuesday, January 30th. We'll have a town council budget work session. Well, we'll be reviewing our current budget, our current fiscal year 2025 budget, and where we are in terms of spending, revenues, and how we meeting that budget. And then the next big public meeting, or the next important town council meeting, will be on Tuesday, April the 9th, 2025, where the town council will be discussing our first look at our draft fiscal 2026 budgets, specifically our general funds. We'll have later meetings that will talk about the capital budget, and then another session on our enterprise funds, which are again water, sewer, stormwater management, and sanitation. Again, these all have something to do with our tax rates, and as you know, that the tax rate was raised by 3 cents last year. So I would urge you to, again, my ask is to continue to follow these meetings, and I'll continue to provide additional information about our budget as we move forward in the preparation, but we need your input as well. And just finally, I would note that we do now have a finance committee that was created at the suggestion of our finance director, We passed an ordinance implementing that, and now it's in operation. We have 5 citizens who are actively engaged, and so they'll be providing their input and another eye or another advisory group to advise us as we move forward with our budget. So again, I want to thank you for listening and watching, not only listening to my podcast, but also watching the videos. Again, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to email me at djenkins@townoflaplata.org. As always, thank you very much for listening. Stay safe, and hopefully the cold weather is breaking. Thank you.